Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of The Walking Dead. So in this episode, we get to see Daryl's situation. I kind of get, really more so than Daryl, this is actually a big Dwight episode too, where we kind of get to see, I guess, what we can consider like the Savior's main compound, maybe, because definitely see Negan around a lot, so it's kind of like maybe possibly their big compound, but seeing the whole situation of how their whole setup goes, it's kind of like you see Dwight kind of moving from place to place. He sees something he wants, he gets to kind of take it. I guess he's kind of like, as Negan kind of says later on, kind of earned his place. Then you also see Daryl's situation, and the fact is he's stripped naked and locked in a essentially it looks like almost like a closet. It's probably more so like a cell, but still it looks like a closet almost. And basically Dwight feeds him like dog food on bread. Now, I found very interesting in this episode is that basically every time Negan walks by, people bow to him like he's a god. It's like, I'm so interested to find out, how does one dude like Negan get to that? I can't let go of that. How do you amass such an army? And I mean, granted, I kind of get how you instill fear in everybody. I mean, it's kind of that mentality. You see it again in this episode. It's like, who are you? I'm Negan. All right. And who are you? I'm Negan. And we're Negan. And it's like, dude, like he's like, and that's, he's like, I'm everywhere. Literally terrified him. It's like, Jeffrey Dean Morgan, damn you for playing this character a little too damn well. It's like, I can't get it out of my head. You were Papa Winchester, and now you're like super scary. Because every time I see him and he's got Lucille in his hand, it's like he's ready to smash somebody's damn brains in. Especially every time he got near Daryl with, I'm like, dude. And he's like, Daryl tried to escape. Which, you luckily had that lady, Dwight's wife, trying to tell him, like, do not run, because if you do, it's going to be worse for you. But Daryl, being the way he is, wasn't listening. So, but the fact is, had him surrounded, and he's like, oh, you pissing your pants yet? I'm like, oh, God, he's got it bad. I'm like, dude, I was flinching at every time, because I think that's what they've done such a good job. Now, granted, I don't know Negan from the comic books because I haven't read the comic books, so I don't know him like that. So a lot of people might have more experience with him, but this shows my first experience with Negan, and I'm loving him. I don't know how most people feel about him. I've heard some different opinions about him and everything, but to me, Negan scares the hell out of me. It's like, that first episode kind of showed you what kind of person Negan is, and it's like, literally, I'm flinching because I don't know when he's going to snap. I mean, there's a little sense to his madness. He does the things, there is rhyme and reason to the things he does, but I'm still scared because every time I'm like, please don't bash somebody's brains in again. I'm a little terrified of him because you literally expect it at any moment. It's like, dude, he's going to turn that battles. Please don't. Okay, he didn't hit somebody. Okay, especially when I was like, oh, please don't, because I was like, if he was going to bash Daryl's brains in, he would have done it by now, but because he's taking a special interest in Daryl. But the moment he swung, I was like, oh God, he's talking about all this stuff about like, oh God, about Daryl kind of, he's like, oh, you only got 3 choices. I was like, God, please don't. And he's about to swing him. I was like, oh, he stopped. And he's like, look at you. You ain't got a bit of fear in you. And he's like, you're actually lucky because Lucille ain't thirsty. And then he said, but I am. And I'm like, oh, crap. He's like, so I'm going to get me something to drink. It's like, dude, stop messing with my emotions, Negan. You're crazy, and I love you for it. I can't help it. I feel like I latch on to psychopaths because like, from a storytelling point of view, I like a good villain. And to me, he's like the best villain from The Walking Dead. I've said it before and I'll say it again. The governor did some pretty horrible stuff. We can't deny that. I mean, I even know some of the stuff. He took some of the stuff he does in the show. They took it a step, obviously, is a step down from what he did in the comic books. I mean, because like spoiler alert, cut off Herschel's head, right? He cut off Herschel's head, but apparently he did the same thing to Tyrese too, because that's apparently where Tyrese kind of died in the comic book too, when the governor came to kind of raid the prison. But nevertheless, it's like he's nothing compared. Like, I don't know, because it's like slicing off someone's head's pretty bad, but it's like what Negan does is worse, bashing her head. And I just love the way he talks about Lucille, just like, she's thirsty, and it's just like, ah. And then there was that whole situation with Dwight where he was just kind of like, And then kind of showing more of how Negan just asserts dominance. He's like, man, Dwight, you've been doing such good work. You know what? You deserve to be rewarded. Now, I want you to go out there. You know what? Got you a freebie on you. You can pick any woman you want. And if she says yes, you go for it. Now, for one, there's a part of my brain that was like, hey, at the very least, he said, if she says yes. So I was like, hey, there's at least an air of consent. But then it dawned on me. I was like, is it real consent, though? Because it's like Negan pretty much owns everybody. So most likely, it's like, oh, the ladies will say yes because, oh, Negan sent you? Okay, then yes. So it's not real consent. But I mean, I guess in his psychopathic mind, it makes it okay. I mean, because when he says when something belongs to him, he means it belongs to him. But I'll get to that in a second. But the fact is, Dwight was like, no, I'm good. And then Negan was like, did you say no? I was like, are you fucking stupid? Dwight, don't say no to Negan. I was like, he's going to smash you in the face just for saying, wait, why would you say no? I don't care if he'd be like, oh man, you've been doing such a good job. It's like, oh, here, take some extra fruit. Never once would I be like, no, thank you, Negan. And he'd be like, wait, you said no to extra fruit? I was like, no, I said yes to extra fruit. Thank you, Negan, because I'm me. It's just like he terrifies me that much. But granted, when you look at the whole, getting to it, though, I get why Dwight said no. Because you end up finding out that the whole situation, the reason why Dwight, his wife, and Tina left was because apparently, Tina's whole medical situation, Negan was like, hey, I'll help you out, but you have to marry me first. And before that could be, set in stone, they took the meds and ran. Tina died, and so they came back, which there were ramifications for it because it's like, originally he was just going to straight up kill Dwight, but then things changed. His wife started pleading for him. He's like, oh, she's like, I'll marry you instead. He's like, oh man, I was supposed to marry, Tina. She was going to be my fiance to be, but Dwight's wife, she's super hot too, and it's just like you see it eating Dwight up on the inside and everything. I was like, dude, it's not like he can say anything because everyone is scared shitless of him except your boy Daryl, dude. Holy crap. I was halfway expecting him. He's standing there and everything because like Dwight finally broke him. Also throwing Glenn that picture, that Negan takes of people. Well, the picture that get taken of people after Lucille's done with him through Glenn's picture. And I was like, oh man, that's eating him up inside. That sucks because it's a constant reminder, that happened in Glenn because of what Daryl did. For Daryl, if it meant it happened to him, then it's one thing. But it's like the fact is Glenn died because of him. Because, he blames himself. I mean, because at the end of the day, it makes you wonder, what will Maggie think? Like when it's all said and done, is Maggie pissed at Daryl? Like if they ever come face to face again, how will she react? Will she blame him for Glenn dying because he acted, But it also showed, like, because you kind of get a little bit of there is a little something there between Daryl and Dwight when Dwight's like, you should submit. You're such an idiot for not submitting because, like, you have Negan be like, yo, you get to have a boss, become a boss, eventually work your way up the ranks, get the good life. And he's like, all you have to do now, what's your name? And he's like, oh, I guess cat's got your tongue. What's your name? And he's like, my name is Daryl. I was like, you, part of me was like, yay, but the other part of me was like, you idiot. You say your name is Negan. You say your name is Negan so you can live to fight another day. Because it's kind of like what the rest of the team has to do. Because like I said, everyone is broken. And it's just like, it's interesting to see that Daryl is the one person that's not broken. Because I guess in Daryl's mind, he'd rather die than like be essentially Negan's bitch. And then Negan's like, Dwight was about to say something, but then Negan's like, if he wants to be extremely stupid, Dwight, then let him be. And then like, Dwight, Daryl ended up saying to Dwight, I understand why you did what you did. You came back and everything because you had someone to take care of. Like the reason why he came back mainly was because he still had his wife. And it's like, I guess in his mind, it was like, being back with Negan is better than going off on your own because at least that way you get to live if you're with Negan. No matter what the consequences may be, at the very least you possibly get to live. If anything, it's like at the very least he would have died and his wife would have gotten to live and be a part of Negan's group and everything. And so that's why Daryl's kind of like, I understand. But then Daryl's like, But the reason why I won't submit is because of the same reason. I have someone is the reason why I won't submit. Now, part of me is wondering, is that supposed to be like, because of what happened in Glenn, he's not going to submit? Because if he does, it's going to make both Abraham's death and Glenn's death mean nothing if he bows down to them, especially Glenn's, because it's like Glenn died because of him and everything. So if he bows down now, it makes Glenn's death meaningless. That, or he's talking about, maybe he's talking about for like Maggie and stuff like that too, because of Glenn, it's just, I mean, there's multiple ways to interpret that. It's like, he said, or maybe it's like, he could be like, Rick is out there still fighting. I mean, but even he saw Rick broken, before he got taken away. So it's like, I mean, who knows? Because that's what fascinates me the most, is finding out what this means for the future of the group too. Because you have Daryl like not backing down, but you have, like I said, everyone else had their spirits broken. Rick has always been like, hot shit, man. Hot shit, man. Been the hot shit. But like, as Negan came and quote unquote shut that shit down. So it's going, like, I'm super interested. Like, I don't mind these episodes, but part of me is just like, I need to find out what Rick, like, what Alexandria's like now. It's like when they come back and everyone finds out the truth about what happens. Like I said, it's going to be heartbreaking for Tara, dude. Once again, because for one, Glenn was the one that brought her into this group after the whole thing went down with the governor. He's the one that led her there, kept her safe, like stayed by her side, always finding his way back to Maggie, and it's going to break her heart, plus finding out about Denise and everything. So, but there is a part of me that's like, I kind of feel bad for Dwight, because it's like they legitimately came back, because I truly believe it's just because they figured they wouldn't survive on their own. Sadly, I think they would have. I think it's also the mentality of eventually Negan would have found him, because his reach is far and wide. He has so many eyes and ears everywhere, because he is everywhere. So I think that's another reason why. And you even had Dwight's wife being like, you remember when we stole your stuff and I told you I was sorry, saying this to Daryl, and she was like, you told me you're going to be sorry, and I am, because it's like, because she, like I said, she legitimately was sorry because they came back and everything, and at the end of it, she is his property. Now, there was that moment her and Dwight had in the hallway of being like, oh yeah, we survived, better than being dead, and it's like, you say that, but you cannot mean that any less than you do. It's so obvious that you would rather, I don't know, because at the end of the day, it's kind of like, is it worth surviving? Even that guy, because there were some people that stole from Negan, and there was one guy left, and Dwight was going to bring him back, and the dude was like, Dwight, put a bullet in me. I'm not going back. He's like, I will put everyone you care about in that fence and let them like take their chances. Everyone that's even talked to you will suffer because of this. You are going back. He's like, he even said to himself, he's like, the first few months, it's like, we thought we learned how to fight the monsters, but that's until they cross paths with Negan. And it's like, dude, like, I've never seen other people this terrified of anybody, and with good reason. I'm like, I want to find out his background. Like I said, we got a little look. You got to look at the governor's background. I'm very curious to learn. Apparently, like the way I've heard people talk about Negan in the comic books, it's just like he's just a psychopath. It's apparently a childish psychopath, because his favorite word is fuck. It's like fuck, fuckity, fuck. Apparently, that's what he's like in the comic book. But because it's AMC, they kind of had to tone that down a little bit, I think. But, I think, what was it, Greg Miller from Kind of Funny kind of described him best as kind of being like psychopathic in a comic book, just kind of like on the levels of Joker. But in the show, they kind of made him like he's not like a ha 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 like laugh while he kind of is kind of the laughing cute, but he's a little bit more childish like psychopath. In this one, he's more just like the stern villain who has that kind of jokey side to him as well. It does, like I said, Jeffrey Dean Morgan does a good job. I can't believe Papa Winchester went and changed on me like that. I can't stress that enough, because it's like, dude, it's like I'm seeing him in another light. No one will ever be able to see Jeffrey Dean Morgan the same way. When it's all said and done, it's like, yeah, that, oh yeah, that's Jeffrey Dean Morgan. Oh, you mean Negan from The Walking Dead? Yeah, I'm talking about Negan from The Walking Dead. I feel just because he does such a bang up job. Other people might not agree, but I do. So, just very interesting episode. Like, I figured the whole thing would be Daryl centric, but I was actually surprised when we actually got like a little bit of Dwight's situation too. Plus, they have that whole cage thing, which I'm trying to understand what that is. Is that, I mean, that's kind of punishment, but I guess it's part of the points system, like how Dwight kind of leveled him, like kind of like treating it like an RPG. Like, hey, you get enough points, you level up, and so because Dwight did that whole situation because he didn't even have to, because even Negan is like, that's grunt work, right? You don't have to do it, but he's like, I want to do it, just because part of me is thinking like he needs something to not make himself feel empty. It just honestly probably needs time away from the base. He just needs to get as far away from Negan as he can for at least a limited amount of time. Something he'd never admit to anybody, because it's like the moment you admit something like that, you're as good as dead. I already knew Daryl wasn't going to make it that far. It's like, but the fact of the matter is Daryl's still trying, and like I said, Dwight's wife was like, they're going to. You think you got it bad now? Like, try and run away. It's going to get a lot worse. So it makes you wonder where it's going to go from here. It's just like, oh, dude, I hope they come like. It's like I threw out the possibility of how this is all going to end, which it may be true, but it's like, with the situation is what it is, I don't see that happening. Legitimately, the only way Negan's going to be stopped is if everyone that's under his control decides to come together. I don't know whether it's going to be under Rick's leadership. I can't see that right now because Rick is literally broken. He lost two important people to him, and it's just his son could have gotten he would have been in a situation where he had to cut off his son's own arm. If not, I'm pretty sure, Negan would have bashed his brains in, killed everybody, and then killed Rick last. No, I would not that I think that he exactly said he would do that. So crazy episode. Maybe we might be getting back to Rick's group next episode. We're kind of finding out where everyone is, finding out everyone's situation. So like I said, because even amongst like the people there, at Negan's compound and everything, you see them kind of beaten down and broken. That's why it's kind of like, it don't even seem like it is. It seems like a place that Negan just drops by, but it is his main compound. But everyone's just kind of like, keep your head down, do what you got to do. Oh, you want get whatever you want. Police just don't hurt me. Okay, I'm gonna get back to work, type of thing. You step out of the line, you get beat down. So, I mean, that's what just like, because the first episode set that up for you so well that just Negan can just go off, he doesn't get his way, he just goes straight to bashing your brains in, and it's like everywhere he goes, swinging Lucille around, just like, it's just kind of a key sign of just like being like, I think that's meant to keep you on edge. That first episode is to keep you on edge for the rest of the sequence. Every time you see him with Lucille in his hands, like, oh God, don't get on Negan's bad side, please. I don't want him to bash any more people's brains in. Which luckily we didn't get any in this episode. But like I said, you squirm a little bit every time. It's just because you're afraid. I won't lie to you. That first episode, like I've said that, like, what was it, last week's episode, how that really messed me up. Took me a couple of days to kind of finally get that out of my head. So I think that's kind of it's supposed to kind of mess with you emotionally, so that every time you see Negan, he's got Lucille in his hands, there's always that little fear in the back of your head, like, oh, is he about to do it? Is he about to bash someone's brains? Nah, he's not. He's kidding. Until it's like, oh, I'm kidding, until he immediately after saying like, oh, I'm kidding or something, bashes someone's brain, and it's like, okay, and now the fear's back. So good episode in regards of just kind of showing you what the situation is. But like I said, I think next week's episode, from the little bits I've seen, because I saw like a little screenshot, because I try to avoid like looking at the previews too much, because I try to turn the channel as quickly as possible. The easiest thing to do would just be to look the other way for about 30 seconds or whatever, but I have to be a little difficult, and I ended up catching a little bit of a look at Eugene. So I'm assuming, like I said, because everything else is done, I'm assuming next week we'll go back to Alexandria. So very interested to see where how that all plays out. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.